Hi everyone, Mark here again, Bowen Moto. How you doing? 100% Kawasaki. New picture up there. Yes. So, I think last time I said I was going to do a little bit more stuff. Really try and work out, thinking back, how I got into motorcycling, and indeed, if it sparks any memories in yourself, how you got into motorcycling. So I was thinking back at sort of various events, sort of some random stuff that sticks in your mind. And just going back and back and back and back, and you think, oh my God, it's right back to when you start cycling. Your first sort of adventure on two wheels, first bit of independence, if you like. So I started off, God, I can't remember what age I was, but it was quite young, and I managed to cajole my dad into getting me a cycle, and we wasn't going to get a new one, so I looked up in the local Evening Post, bicycles for sale, gentleman's house. I think there was a phone number there, that sort of thing, you know. So we got the old phone, the old party line phone as it was then, shared a line. So that's how old it was. Rang this guy up, went around his house. He had a little terraced house, jam packed with cycles out in the garden. He's obviously makes them all out of bits and pieces, you know. And we found something that fitted, brought that. I cannot remember what price it was. It was cheap, probably £8 or something crazy. I can't remember, but got that, then just went everywhere with it. Went quite a lot with a buddy, Richard, who was very much into cycling and motorcycles actually, and that sort of sparked some of the interest. We known each other for many years on and off. Then primary school pictures at 7, Pottery Road Primary School. This is me with my very nice skiing jumper. It's my favourite jumper, may not be the best one, but I loved it. And this is Richard here, Mr. Freeman. So we'd known each other for quite a while, and we was always cycling around, doing stuff, and it was great to have that sort of independence, you know. Richard obviously had, his dad was very much into bikes. Richard has ridden a bike very early on, 7-8 years of age, around his garden on a little C90. And in his dad's garage there was a Triumph Tiger 110 with a sidecar. There was a BSA 500 and a Royal Enfield Ensign 150. And these were fascinating things, and we tinkered with them, but we was never allowed to take them out, which was a real shame. Just used to clean some bits and play around. But it was that sort of garage stuff, all hidden and covered up. Could we drag it out? No, we couldn't. But you know, it sort of created interest. And over the road from Richard was some guys, friends as it were, of Richard and his dad. One of them had a BSA 10, and then the son got a bike. He was obviously a bit older than us. He was one of the first ones when the X7 came out, and his friend had a GT250, which was a little bit earlier than the X7. And you know, we were just kids, like going, wow, you know, fantastic, I wish I could have one of those, you know. Obviously then in those days, loads of apprenticeships, and it was the done thing was to get, once you got a job, you get enough money, you could get a motorbike. Fantastic. And we used to just keep fueling this sort of fire, as it were. So we would cycle all over the place, but we would go to the top of Bells Lane in Hoo, which is the main Ratcliffe Highway, and this is after school, and we would watch people coming home from work, and Kings North Power Station, BP Refinery, all that, those sort of big employers. And there would be all sorts of exotic bikes whizzing past. Big Kawasaki's, Hondas. Laverda Jota, I remember once rumbled past Ducati 900s, TS250 Suzuki, little C90s, all sorts of strange stuff. But it was worth sitting there for an hour, seeing what come past, you know, when they all knocked off, as it were. So that was just part of the fuel, you know, just building up this sort of like urge to get out there and get on the road. But before that, obviously, there was always the old field bikes. Now, there was always some bikes getting handed around, just used off-road. I was lucky down in Who we had the Kings North power station down on the coast there, and that led along to the Who Marina. There's a massive seawall there. You could ride up and down there pretty much uninterrupted. You know, you wouldn't really get chased off. There was some other areas, which I'll tell you about later on, that you get chased off of, but we was down there. I can't remember the guy's name, but he had an NSU Quickly. I'll show you a little picture. This is an NSU Quickly. So it doesn't seem like a fantastic machine, but to me, I mean, he let me ride it, and I got on it, and honestly, I thought my arms were going to come out of the sockets. It was that powerful. First sort of motorised transport. Yeah, learned to drive it, didn't stall it, got away, probably let the clutch out a bit sharp, so shot off. But that was brilliant. So I just got to have it, you know, and eventually he sold it to me, which was great. I mean, they weren't changing hands for big money, you know, for £10, £15, £20, that sort of thing. Got it home, couldn't wait to ride it. So I was sort of thinking, oh, I'll ride it down the garden, but the garden's only about 70, 80 foot long. So I thought, yeah, it'll be all right. I'll be able to back off at the bottom and just ease round. So I shot off down the garden, completely out of control. Thought I'm never going to make the bottom. Leant it over, managed to make a bit of a turn straight into the side fence to stop it. So after that, got it back up, fixed the brakes, had lots and lots of fun on that. But obviously, you know, after about the third outing, I realised this is not quick enough. We need something more powerful. So brought a Zundapp 250. Now this was a sort of fairly old, I don't know what year it must have been. It was a really old commuter style Zundapp 2-stroke 250 that had been completely stripped down, knobbly rear tyre, big bars. Didn't run too bad sometimes, but it was a bit of a love-hate relationship. It ran sometimes, didn't run others. Worked out later on the battery was going flat, affecting ignition, and there was loads of problems with it. So eventually that went, and then brought a little Suzuki 80, little standard little commuter bike that had a knobbly tyre fitted on the back, some basic plates made up to raise the shocks up, give it a bit more ground clearance, and that was immense amounts of fun. I rode that for ages and ages and ages, down the seawall, through the caravan sites, through Cookham-Wood, I think it was called, into Upnor. I don't know if you've ever been to Upnor. There's a little walk bridge like this, and we used to leap it off of the bridge. It used to hit the ground so hard, it flattened the front of the exhaust pipe about halfway every time it hit the floor. So and then we used to go off to what they called the Sands, the army grounds, training ground, which was just like massive amounts of fun. But the army, if they were about, they would chase you off, so that wasn't quite so good. But it was okay about it. So that was a great fun time. Sort of started learning with these sort of bikes what to do and what not to do. The Suzuki got a bit slow. It was really hard to start. I worked out that the rings were knackered. Took the barrel off, got a new set of piston rings all the way from Brands Bardies in Wales, because even then it was an old bike that it was hard to get parts for. Promptly tried to fit these on an old piston, snapped the rings trying to get it back together. Learnt the lesson. If you're going to change the rings, you've either got to clean the pistons to within an inch of their life, the grooves, or start with a new piston. So new piston was the way. Got it back on the road again, had hours of endless fun. Sold that, can't quite remember what happened then, and got a BSA Bantam then, 175 4-speed. That was quite fun. It wasn't very fast. I think I was nearly 16 then, and I remember racing my friend's AP50 Suzuki, which would be faster than it off the line, so I'll get out accelerated, but I used to get him back on top speed. This wasn't on the road at the time. This was on a thing called Roper's Lane down at Who, which is a bit of a sort of derelict road, if you like. We used to race along there. Anyway, we tried to tune it, learnt a few lessons there about tuning. We also had a source car problem with ignition. You know, it was a good steep learning curve, but hey, that's the fun of biking. So that was before getting on the road. So, but going back to the cycles, Richard, who was good at organising stuff, and that he had an idea when we were around about 14 to go to Brands Hatch and watch some of the racing. And again, another sort of spark, you know, into sort of like enthusiastic motorcycle behaviour. He arranged this at school, and we had a really good response. There was over 15 people all got together to ride to Brands Hatch. Now, from where we lived in Who, housed all around 100 Who school, it was a good 20 miles to Brands. That's about 2.5 hours cycling steady. So we all set off, and it got a bit crazy because there was all sorts of mayhem. Chains were coming off, Sturmy Archer 3-speed drives and the rear wheels exploding, people getting punches, you know, it's just mayhem. And of course, no mobile phones in those days, so you'd find a phone box, ring mum and dad up, come get me, this sort of thing. So people were having all sorts of dramas. But one memory I was talking to Richard about the other day, we stopped at Cobham. There used to be a bakery there, and we sort of stripped it of cream cakes and bits and pieces because we was having a whale of a time in the morning. And anyway, we got to Brands, watched the racing, which was brilliant. That was a real eye-opener. It was a fun day watching these people going mad, and it sort of gives you a sense of God, these people are taking risks and really going fast and scraping footrests, and they're thinking, wow, this is what I've got to do. So we watched that, which is really good. We rode home, more mayhem on the way home. People they had dug bikes out of garages that were like 20 years old, and the bearings were smoking on the wheels going down Longfield Hill, and getting into right bother. So but anyway, that sparked a really constant cycling to Brands, watching the club racing mainly. The numbers dwindled a bit down to a sort of hardcore 3 to 5 people. Myself, Richard, his brother, you know, that sort of thing, going there quite regular in all sorts of weathers. But again, it all adds to the sort of interest and the sort of I must get a motorcycle on the road, you know. So that was exceptionally good fun, and that all sort of builds up your enthusiasm. Another thing that, you know, sort of drives it as well was the On Two Wheels magazine. Now I've got some in the shop up on the wall. They come out in '76. I was about 14, I think then, and I was getting weekly instalments of that, and they were marvellous. You know, there's so much interest in there, and it just sort of gets you really blinkered and focused. Obviously, I had to concentrate on some schoolwork, that as well, but trying to mix the both together, you know. So that was really good fun. So that sort of brought us up to a point of coming to the end of school, getting an apprenticeship, and then after that getting a motorcycle. So we're going to try and get some more pictures together about that, and then about ultimately getting into racing and that sort of stuff. So if it hasn't been too boring, we'll catch up with some more stuff next time. It's been good. Take it easy, stay safe out there, and see you soon. Bye bye.